From working in records as a clerk in a local police department to leading up the academic side for our student athletes at Louisiana Tech, Lindsey McKaskle tells her story today on Tech Drive. Tech Drive continues this week with Lindsey McKaskle, Associate AD for Student Athlete Success Services. I'm the voice of the Bulldogs, Kyle Schasberger. Lindsey, I'm fired up to have you here. I know you're so excited to be up here in Ryan's suite talking to me on Tech Drive.
Anytime I can talk about our student athletes is a good day, so it's going to be fun.
Well, I'm looking forward to peeling back the curtain some and those onion layers and giving more of a in-depth view on what it is you and your team does to get our student athletes up to speed and keep them eligible, right? For athletic competition. There are far more daunting things in life, I know, than being up here with me today, but we'll have some fun telling your story. The Student Athlete Success Services part of your title. I know that's kind of a fancy way of explaining what it is that you do, but you are responsible for ensuring the student athletes are getting it done in the classroom, right? Like, let's establish that.
Yeah, so that's probably the majority of the job, right, is to make sure all of our staff, we all have teams that are assigned to us. And so we work with each of those teams to make sure that they're in the right classes, that they're in the degree programs that they need to be in, helping make sure that they understand when their assignments are due, when they have exams, do they need tutoring, those sorts of things. We work really closely with our registrar on campus to make sure that we're maintaining all of our eligibility standards. So that is, yes, a big portion of what we do. Also part of the student success spot is kind of the extra. It's looking into student athlete programming. I work directly with our student athlete advisory committee, which is made up of student athletes from each of our teams. They're kind of the voice of the student athletes, so we do things with them as well. And then just kind of anything that's related to student athlete success, kind of from a holistic, perspective, academics, career, personal, social, that sort of thing.
And you've committed really your whole life to this. You have a lot of experience in your field, and we'll go through some of your credentials. And coming back to Ruston, though, you've been here about a year and a half, correct? Mm-hmm. You spent almost 4 years previously as an executive associate AD for administration at Eastern Kentucky. That was a second stint there, responsible for the academic side, but also compliance, mental health, and more. And you're from West Monroe, so I know this opportunity to come back to Northern Louisiana worked out beautifully for you when you were brought aboard in the spring of 24.
Yeah, it's interesting how timing is everything, really, I think, with career moves. And, when you work in athletics, whether, I think, any level, collegiate, professional, the jobs don't come to you. You have to typically go to where the job is. And being, in this field, I never really thought I would have the opportunity to probably be this close. There's a couple of colleges around here, obviously, but you just never know when the openings are going to be, at what time, and how it's all going to work out. And, the spring of 2024, my boss, who I had worked with at a couple of different institutions, had the opportunity to become an AD at another school. And it just, for a lot of different reasons, didn't work out for me to go there. And plus, it was further from home. And being an only child, my parents are getting a little older. That was not the best situation, I thought, for me to be farther away from them. And right around that time, I got a phone call from Ryan about this job. We had known each other at our previous, when I was at Nichols and he was at SFA, and we had known each other through that. And so that's just kind of how this opportunity came about. And like I said, timing really is everything when you work in this field. And I was just fortunate enough to be able to take advantage of that.
Wow, that's unique. It's a homecoming. That's great for you from a family standpoint. You get to spend more time with those closest to you and your parents. But the connection to Ryan, I actually didn't connect those dots in preparing for this, because you were an interim AD while you were at Nichols in Thibodaux, and that's how you and Ryan started your relationship, or at least obviously knew of each other because your ADs run in the same circle.
Yeah, so I had known him, I'd known who he was. I don't know, how many times we had actually talked or had conversations, but obviously he's been, he was at Austin P at one point, and at EKU, Austin P and EKU were in the same conference. So I'd kind of known who he was. But then right before COVID started, so like, let's say February, early March of 2020, was when I became, I think February was when I became interim AD. And then COVID hit in March of 2020. And so that's when we really had started to have conversations, because everybody at that point, obviously everybody was trying to figure out what we were doing, right? Like 2 weeks to get past the curve, and then we'll start playing again, right? Well, everybody knows that didn't happen. So then you're starting to think ahead to the fall and football season. And so I remember Ryan and I had a phone call about, what's the likelihood of you guys being able to play in the fall, and just having different conversations like that. So that's kind of, I think, when we really first started to talk to each other and kind of discuss work-related things.
So you're on the front lines during COVID of the return to participation protocols that you're running point on for Nicholls. How did that charge test you as a person, personally and professionally?
Yeah, so I've had so many people ask me over the years, like, do you want to be an athletic director? And I never did, really. Like, I enjoyed the work I did. I didn't really enjoy the spotlight or, kind of wanting that position. And so when I was named interim AD, I thought, okay, well, here we go. Let's see how this goes, right? Like, I may change my mind. I may really enjoy it. And then COVID happened, and I spent the majority of my time as interim AD in my apartment in Houma, Louisiana, on Zooms from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. So it wasn't the experience that I thought I was going to have, but it completely shaped me, because all of a sudden you're thrown into this thing that nobody's dealt with before. And you're trying to figure out what is everybody else doing? Well, how do we match up to what they're doing? Do we have the funding to do testing? And how often are we doing that? And so, relying on other people that you talk to, right? Like having those conversations with Ryan, having those conversations with other people, because we were all just trying to figure it out. And so I joke all the time that, like, I didn't really get the experience that I wanted because I spent all of my interim AD time at home. Yeah. I didn't get that full experience.
It was a wild time. It's hard to believe that was just 5 years, more than 5 years ago. I mean, 5 years ago, with us talking here, we're still going through testing and student athletes and people all over the country for whatever workspace it is. I mean, all of those protocols and requirements. It's how fast time flies, but my goodness, I hope none of us have to experience such a thing ever again. With that said, how have you enjoyed working alongside Ryan and Deputy AD Mary Kay Hungate, both instrumental in your hiring and being back in northern Louisiana?
Yeah, I didn't know what to expect. It was my first time in probably, I don't know how many years, maybe around 6 or 7, that I wasn't working with the same AD and kind of knew, how to work with him and that dynamic and all of that. So getting used to not only a new athletic director, but not being a senior woman administrator and working with Mary Kay, who is an institution at Louisiana Tech. I mean, to be able to learn from her and the knowledge that she has, not only about Louisiana Tech, but the job, right? Like being able to talk to her about scenarios that come up and deal with different things. Like she's the best. Like she's a treasure. And she would deny that. And, but she truly is. And to have somebody like that you can learn from, and I think just the entire executive staff, from Ryan on down, just work really well together. And so it's been nice to be part of that group where you can have discussions and you can agree and you can not agree. You can have those things and you're empowered to have those opinions and empowered to have those discussions. But I've really enjoyed working with Ryan. Like I said, I knew him before and I knew somewhat what he was about, but working with him day to day, it's been great.
I've never heard anybody refer to Mary Kay as an institution, but that is the perfect way of describing her and what she means to this university. By the way, I'm twirling a little beverage straw. I don't know if anybody's used that as a sub to a pen, but it's working well. I just need something in my
No,
hand.
you're good.
So,
You're
don't
good.
judge me. Let's get to some of the numbers. So the work you've put in has shown as the fall quarter numbers poured out a few weeks ago, student athletes recorded a 3.353 GPA. That's the highest term GPA on record. That's incredible stuff.
Thank you. I mean, all the credit goes to the student athletes. We have a really great group, and we have a group that is incredibly self-motivated. Let's just say 95% of them are incredibly self-motivated, right? And they don't need a lot of help. Like, they know the direction they're going, they know what they need to do and what they need to take care of. And so it all starts with them. I think we have great coaches. And I can't say this about every place I've been, but truly every one of our head coaches puts an emphasis on academics, and they truly do help us. It's a team effort, between the student athletes, coaches, and our staff. It's just really nice to be able to see their hard work pay off, and to be rewarded like that.
In helping these student athletes realize their academic potential, what all goes into the day-to-day, the accountability, scheduling, perhaps the meetings you have with them to keep them on task? And I'm kind of curious about that other 5% too, and maybe the extra effort needed behind the scenes.
So I would say, how we kind of determine that, we work with our head coaches. So like I said, we are all, we have 5 members on staff. And so each of us work with different teams. And so I work with men's and women's basketball, baseball, bowling, and golf. Sophie Weidman works with football and softball. Lindsey Manning works with men's and women's track and field and tennis. Ashlyn works with soccer and volleyball. And then we were fortunate, Ryan Harlan, who was a former baseball student athlete here at Louisiana Tech, just graduated last year.
Just got engaged.
He did.
Congrats,
Yeah.
Ryan, and
Ryan.
your fiance.
Yeah, he just got engaged. And so he had expressed an interest in working with us. And so currently he is working with our freshman football student athletes. But that role is probably going to expand for him in the coming months, because he's killing it. He's doing such a great job. But we work with each of our head coaches to kind of determine who on our rosters we would consider at risk. And so that can be a lot of different factors. That can be, are they a transfer student athlete? Are they a transfer student athlete coming from a junior college? What is their GPA? Are there social factors that we need to know about? Do any of our student athletes have learning differences? So there's a lot of ways that a student can be deemed at risk. And so we work with each of our coaches because they know them, like they've met them through the recruiting process. They've talked to their coaches, whether it's high school coaches, club coaches, whatever that looks like, but they've had an opportunity to get to kind of know them, and we can kind of pinpoint, okay, these students might need a little extra support. And so we do meet with them weekly. And so some, if they get into some issues, might have meetings twice a week. But those meetings consist of, they have to bring in their laptops, and we go through all of their grades, and we talk about, what do I need to know about your grades? Is there anything that you need to talk to me about? Is there anything you need to talk to your professor about? And then we just go through their stuff for the week. And so we go through each class. Do you have assignments due this week? Do you have an exam this week? What's going on? And then what's the plan to get all of this done? Like, when are we doing these things? Because you have to take into account, are they in season versus out of season? And so especially those teams that travel during the week, football is honestly a little easier, because outside of that one little span of the midweek games that we have, they're primarily playing on Saturdays, and they're not missing a ton of school outside of that little stretch. So when you have like your baseball student athletes, men's and women's basketball, those that span, and they're going to miss quite a bit of work. Okay, or quite a bit of school. So what's the plan for this week? What are we doing? Okay, so you've got an exam on Tuesday and you're leaving on Tuesday. Have you talked to your professor? So it's just trying to figure out what that plan is for the week. We also require them, if they have certain GPAs, they have study hall hours. So all of our transfers and all of our new freshmen have automatic set number of study hall hours. because, and we tell them all the time, it's not because of how intelligent I think you are or how capable I think you are. But for our freshmen, this is your first time being away from home. It's your first time making assumptions, but you're washing your own clothes. You're having to buy your own groceries. You're having to figure out what this whole new athletic component looks like for you at the collegiate level. And sometimes the first thing to slip is academics. And so study hall is kind of your opportunity to figure out, how do you study best? How do you adjust to this newfound sort of freedom that you have with your schedule, and how do you manage that? And then I think for our transfers, 99% of them are coming from a semester school. And so they're now having to adjust to what the quarter system looks like and the speed in which that information is being delivered. So they're going from a term that's 16 weeks usually to a 10-week term. And it'll catch up with you pretty quick if you don't prepare yourself. So those are kind of the things that we do. In those meetings, we'll talk to them about tutoring. So if we know, hey, we're going into this and we know we have to take this math class, but we know we're terrible at math, then we need to get in tutoring from the very beginning. And we're fortunate we've been able to hire quite a few student tutors that come in and help with that. And so that's kind of the gist of it, I think.
No, that's a lot, and it makes sense that it varies, based on the athletic season or the sport, and obviously some of those challenging factors or at risk, that nature of it, you're gonna have to laser the focus a little bit more on certain individuals. But I would imagine that brings the best out of your staff. Those are the sort of challenges of why you've surrounded yourself with the team that you have, and why you love what you do. It's to help overcome, even those small or few instances where there might be a struggling student athlete, that you can help whip into shape and then eventually, hopefully, graduate, right?
Yeah, and I mean, we've seen those stories play out. I mean, I would say probably the most fulfilling part of the job is when we get those text messages or those phone calls and they're like, I got a B on my math test. And I'm like, that's awesome. Like, you can celebrate that with them because math isn't their thing. And they've been in study hall, in tutoring and in study hall. How hard they've worked for that. And so to be able to celebrate those moments with them, like, those feel like huge wins for us. I mean, you talk about the GPA, and the GPA is awesome, and it's an incredible indicator of success across the board. But it's those little moments that you're like, okay, well, what we did mattered, and what we did made a difference. And so
I don't want to move entirely off GPA or even that moment when these student athletes do eventually walk across the stage, but let's provide a little bit more color to these fall numbers. They came out. 13 of 14 Tech athletic rosters posted a term GPA of at least 3.00. Soccer had the highest GPA at 3.71, second highest ever for the program. Men's basketball set a new watermark, 3.22. There were 251 Bulldogs and Lady Techsters in total who achieved AD honor roll status. That's a 3.00 and above. 138 made the Dean's List at 3.5. I was forever a Dean's List guy at Western Illinois University, so I know how difficult that can be. And then an additional 51 reached the President's List. So that's with a minimum GPA of 3.85. There's more with a 4.00, but this successful path that your team is helping to set these student athletes on, it speaks to the quality individual, I think, more than anything, that Louisiana Tech and these athletic programs, these coaches are recruiting and bringing in, their ability to want to come in, learn. These are smart kids who are coming to campus.
They're incredibly smart kids. And, I think sometimes they do get a bad rap because maybe they might make mistakes that 18 to 22-year-old human beings make sometimes. And they may sometimes be in programs that are challenging for them. But if you ever sat in a team meeting with them and watch how they process, like, even just film, if they're doing that, like, you can tell how intelligent these student athletes are. And so our coaches do a great job of trying to recruit student athletes that are a good fit, because not everybody is a great fit for this system and for the quarter system. And you have to recruit a student that's going to put in the work, and that they're going to, like, they understand the task ahead of them. And like I said, it's a team effort on all of our sides to help them get there. Yeah.
You can hear some of the beams as we record here on Tech Drive being hammered at in the north end zone. I do want to ask you about the new Origin Bank Center for Student Athlete Success that's coming to life in that north end zone as we speak here at Joe IA Stadium. We'll do that at the end of our visit. Again, Lindsey McKaskle with us on Tech Drive. 59 student athletes it was that had perfect 4.0 GPA for the fall quarter. 6 individuals earned degrees. So when these student athletes walk, whether it be from your time at EKU, Nicholls State before that, now here at Tech, how fulfilling is that for you, given all the effort that you put into these student athletes?
Well, that's the ultimate goal. I mean, at the end of the day, like athletic, accomplishments are going to be what they are, as far as how far they make it. If they're able to have a professional athletics career, that's awesome. But I think a lot of our student athletes know that that's probably not in their future, right? And so graduation, and for so many of our student athletes who are first generation college students, and their families, like they're the first ones getting a degree in their families, like it is meaningful. I mean, when we always have the Friday before graduation, we do an athletic stole ceremony. And so we're able to give them their athletic stole, so they'll have that before they walk at graduation the next day. And just seeing their families and how excited everybody is for them, but knowing like nobody can ever take that degree away from you. Like that is something that you will always have, and something that hopefully is shining a light on what you're about to do in the future that you have. And honestly, graduation in this current era of college athletics is a lot harder, because we are recruiting probably more transfers than we ever have before. And so because of the new transfer rules and students being able to transfer in and out, the graduation piece becomes a little bit harder to get, because you don't have student athletes for 4 to 5 years anymore. You only have them sometimes for small snippets of time. And so when you're able to celebrate a graduation, like it's a huge deal. And it's the culmination of so much hard work that they've put in.
Before I swing it back to the academic center and the significance of that project, I got to ask about, it's my favorite part of your resume, okay? West Monroe Police Department. I'm fascinated by the stories, behind someone and how they get to where they are as a storyteller. But before starting as a compliance intern at Vanderbilt and Belmont, and your first stint at EKU before moving back to Louisiana and Thibodeau, you were a records clerk for 5 years with the West Monroe Police Department. How was that?
Yeah, it was great. So the story behind that, so when I graduated from Louisiana College, my degree was in sociology. I had a minor in criminal justice. And so I thought the path that I wanted to take was like a social work type environment, right? And the summer I graduated, I had a couple of different interviews. Neither one worked out. And I realized really quickly with those interviews that I did not want to do those things, that was just not the path for me. And I had no clue. I had no clue what I was going to do at that point. And like parents, my mom was like, well, you've got to have a job, so let's figure this out. And she happened to have a connection at the police department, and they were looking for a part-time records clerk to work in the chief's office. And I ended up getting the job. And after a year, I was made full-time. And, I wore the uniform, I had a badge, I didn't have the rest of the things, but
you didn't have a weapon.
I did not. That was in everyone's best interest probably, but I did have a badge, and I worked in the chief's office. I did payroll for our police officers. So they were at the time old school, so they would have timesheets that they would submit. I had to enter all of that. And then I did, I helped pay some bills and things like that. But
sure.
I loved it. I loved the camaraderie with the police officers. Like they would come in and just chat, and just to hear their stories, the things that they would deal with. I absolutely loved it. The only reason, not the only reason, but one of the reasons I moved on from it was just, didn't have a lot of growth, like if I was probably going to be doing that for the next 20 years. And as much as I loved the people and I loved what I did and I loved the environment, it just probably wasn't a long-term solution for me. And so that's when I started looking into grad schools, because again, even then I still didn't know what I wanted to do. And I just happened to look at Belmont because I had family in Nashville. So I've been to Nashville multiple times, but I had also gone to church camp at Belmont one summer. And so I just happened to look there, and they had a master's degree in sport administration. And I thought, what is that? Like, I love sports. What is this? And so just doing the research into it and figuring out like what kind of, careers you could have in that field, I thought, okay, that's really interesting. And then I felt like based on what I had been kind of doing at the police department and probably my personality, like NCAA compliance might be the route. And so it took me a couple of years to work up the courage to do it and to move to Nashville, but was very fortunate. I was able to get a year-long internship at Vanderbilt. Loved it there, learned a lot there, and then did a different internship experience at Belmont before going to EKU.
Where's the badge from the West Monroe Police Department? Did you have to turn that thing in?
I think I did.
Oh,
yeah, I think I did.
Dagger.
I know.
That's okay.
I know. That is kind of a fun story, though. A lot of people are like, wait, did you have a gun? And I'm like, I did not have a weapon. That was not one thing I had, but I did have a badge.
In Nashville, that's a pretty sweet spot to spend some time in college. However, I'm sure you were extremely busy, but you had family up there. I mean, were you able to enjoy the splendors of Music City at all, and Broadway?
Yeah, I mean, I was in grad school, so I, one, didn't have a lot of money.
Okay.
And two, didn't have a lot of time between internships. But I had so many fun experiences there. Like, I enjoyed working all the Vanderbilt football games. And so that was an experience in and of itself, working in an SEC environment with all those, at the time. Now Vanderbilt's having a pretty good year, but at the time,
not so much.
They had not been. The year that I was there was their first year they had been bowl eligible in many years. And so I was able to travel to the game. They were playing at Kentucky, and I helped do the pass list for all of the parents. And I remember like it was yesterday. It was freezing, so cold, but we became bowl eligible for the first time.
Is that James Franklin?
No, that was Bobby Johnson.
Okay,
maybe
must have been right before James.
Yeah, and so, but I was able to enjoy it a little bit. Yeah, I mean,
Good.
it's always fun to get out to the restaurants in downtown and just walking around and seeing the things that you see down there.
Shocker of the year. The only 2 times that I've been there are for bachelor parties. So I've gotten the full experience.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's incredible. What kind of softball player were you in college?
Oh gosh.
Pitcher, right?
I was a pitcher. Yeah. I was okay. I had never had I don't want to say I didn't have aspirations, but I didn't really have plans to play in college. I just planned on being a regular student. And then it's just, again, how things work out. The head coach at the time at Louisiana College was best friends with my youth pastor at church. And so he was like, you just need to talk to him. Like, just see, maybe it's something you might want to do, whatever. And I did, and it ended up working out. And so, and I was probably a better hitter than I was a pitcher, to be honest. But I did that. Yeah, I played all 4 years. I played more the first 2 with that coach. He moved on after the 2 years. We got a new coach who I loved. But it was just, he was recruiting different students. And so I didn't have as many opportunities to play, but I just loved the environment of it. And I think that's something that, I hope our student athletes are remembering, and because these are 4 to 5 years that you're not going to get back, like the opportunities, even if you're not playing that much, you're still an integral part of your program, and having a good attitude and working hard every day, but just taking advantage of those friendships, because this time will be over before you know it.
The credentials you've brought to Ruston are awesome. They're undeniable. Soon you'll have a new building to continue to implement your vision for academics. How excited are you for what this new Student Academic Center will bring?
We're so excited. I mean, we love our little space in the TAC and the Thomas Assembly Center.
It's a little space,
but it's a little space. I hate to say the Wi-Fi is sketchy at times, and so we're excited to have a space where our coaches are proud to bring recruits, and we've done a lot of work in the space in the last year and a half that we've been here to clean it up a little bit. little paint jobs here and there to just, it's amazing what a little paint will do to make it look a little nicer. And just some reorganization of the way things were in there. But we're excited to have that space, not only for our student athletes, I think, but for our staff, like having a conference room where we can actually bring recruits and have recruiting presentations. But a great space that we're going to be proud to show off. And like I said, having just kind of the new state-of-the-art technology for our student athletes, having separate tutoring spaces that they can have their tutoring in private, but also spaces that they can reserve, you know, like for students, like if they have a group project, that they can reserve that for their group to come work in there. So we're very excited about it.
Yeah, long-term success of the student athletes, no doubt, will be protected and enhanced with this new building that is being put up in the north end zone.
And a place that they want to be. You know, like I think a place that it's, you know, when you talk about kind of the overall student athlete experience, there's a lot of things that go into that. But having this really nice dedicated space where they can study and they can get better academically, we're very excited to be able to provide that to them.
Do we know what we're going to do with the older space at the time?
We do not, from what I've been told. I think there's been several ideas tossed around.
Maybe we can make like a hospitality area for events down there.
Well, I want to say, I don't know if it used to be that. No, that was the marketing space. I think that used to be that. I've heard different things. Okay. So we will see. We will see who wins that.
TBD.
Yeah.
The holidays, your family, being back here in northern Louisiana, Christmas is right around the corner. What's your favorite part about this time of the year?
Oh, I think it's just being able to spend time with family. When you work in athletics, we say all the time that we see our coworkers more than we see our families. And as much as we love our coworkers and we love that time with them, it's nice to just kind of get off the grid a little bit and be able to spend time with family and kind of not think about work for a little bit and just enjoy that.
Well, if anybody needs any ideas for the holiday season, they should go to Patton's Western Wear or Patton's Downtown. That certainly is an option for all of you dressed to impress, whether you're looking to get ready for the big game and could be you decking yourself and the family out, whatever it may be, everything you need to rep Tech. Go to Patton's Western Wear for the outdoorsman in you, or Patton's Downtown. Hundreds of uniquely designed and officially unique licensed Bulldogs, Lady Techsters apparel. All the options at Patton's Downtown in Ruston. You can find it all when you shop locally at Patton's, a North Louisiana tradition since 2007. Lindsey, this has been awesome. I don't know if there's anything we haven't revealed about you that you might want to share that might be interesting. What do you like to do in your free time?
Oh, gosh. I love to shop.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Patton's, there you go.
I know, there you go. The perfect segue. Perfect segue.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I just, honestly, I just enjoy spending time with friends and family. Like I said, sometimes I think when you work in athletics, as much as we love it, and it can be heavy at times. And so I think having that opportunity to just kind of chill and just not have to think about work, those are the times with friends and family that you cherish.
Do you get all your Christmas shopping well ahead of time done, completed?
Nope. Okay. I am a procrastinator in the worst way when it comes to
I need ideas for my 10-year-old for Pudge. It's hard to buy a 10-year-old something because she just wants clothes and makeup or money. I mean, she thinks she's 18, but I want a tangible type, experience, something memorable. So I'm having a world of a time trying to figure that out for my kid right now. So.
Well, and it's also as challenging buying for your parents.
Yeah.
Who have everything in the world, and if they want it, they just go buy it.
Right.
So being able to surprise them with anything is about impossible. So I can appreciate that.
Lindsey McKaskle, Senior Associate AD for Student Athlete Success Services here at Louisiana Tech. Lindsey, it's been great. I hope you enjoyed your time on Tech Drive.
I did. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, for Jack Stribney, Carson, GB, and Kyle Cavanaugh, the voice of the Bulldogs, Kyle Schasberger. We'll catch you next time on Tech Drive.